Who's the most famous person you've met? I met Buzz Aldrin once when I was a kid. I asked him if he saw aliens on the moon and he said I sure did. I have seen Robin Williams do stand up for a private group of less than 50 people. Twice. I sat 5 feet from him and he mingled with a group after. He was great friends with my old boss. Like she had dinner with his family type friends. He was so nice and personable with everyone and my employees loved him. This was in 2005 and 2006. I thought it was incredible that he would do this show and meet and greet for a friend. I guess he used it to test out new material. The shows were seriously a couple hours long. Just Robin. Morgan Freeman came to my place of work to do research for a film project. I have a picture of us together somewhere. He outed me to my boss when he saw me playing Shadow Bane. John Cena came into my work to buy some gym equipment. The whole time I was just in awe at the size of him. Absolute unit. Paul McCartney. I'm a chauffeur driver for a company and he flew in on his private jet. I picked up him, his wife and daughter Stella and drove them to Doris Day's house to celebrate her 94th birthday. He's one of the nicest folks I've ever driven and even was willing to create conversation with me. When it was all said and done I just kept thinking to myself, man, I drove one of the Beatles. Holy shit, pretty wild day. My friend met David Bowie in the elevator in New York City once. My friend wasn't a fan and didn't recognize him. But he seemed familiar somehow. So my friend asked if they met at the dance class he was taking a while back. David Bowie smiled and said no. I don't think so. Only later my friend realized that that's why this guy was. I met Amanda Bynes, along with other cast members, after a live action viewing of All That in the 90s. She was relatively new to the show at that time. And the one I really wanted to meet was Laurie Beth. But she wasn't there. Amanda actually had a conversation with me and complimented my hair, which I got bullied over constantly as a kid. It was super puffy and curly and I didn't know how to maintain it. And it just rocked my world that this super cool celebrity thought my hair was pretty. It didn't stop the bullying, but it did give me a bright little something to hold on to. I've always been grateful to her for that. I felt so bad for her when she was going through that mental breakdown thing a few years back. I don't really follow celebrity news but I hope she's doing better now. One time I thought I saw Kevin James but it was just a bigger gentleman drinking alone at an airport bar. Rodney Dangerfield. He was staying in the same hotel as my family. Back in the 90s. Right after Ladybugs had come out. I saw him in the pool. And asked him for his autograph and started talking to him. My parents said we had to go. And he invited me to stay with him. So I hung out at the pool with him while my parents went back to their hotel room to get ready. To this day, I give my parents shit for allowing Rodney Dangerfield to babysit me in Las Vegas. I met Zac Efron on a beach in Hawaii 8 years ago. So around the whole High School Musical 3 hype up, was there a lot of people around him? He was on a jog. So not at the time. Robin Williams. I was a security guard at one of those Rubber Chicken $500 plate charity events in SF. Noticed a little hairy guy a couple of spots down in the line. Realized he was Robin Williams. Went back to watching the crowd. He moved up a couple of spots. And struck up a conversation with me. I was nobody to him. And he was kind to me. I met Gordon Ramsay at one of his restaurants in London. He was extremely polite and happy to take pictures with us. He's a really nice guy. Worked at his house a couple of times. Always came away with a £50 tip for each of us working there. And he took the time to come and chat after everyone else had left. Even came away one time with an unreleased cookbook that he'd signed for me. Feel kinda bad about breaking his toilet. Body surfed with Robin Williams and his wife for about an hour or two in Hawaii. He hit it off with my GMA and we had a blast. This was about 3 months before his unfortunate departure. Daniel Radcliffe. About 10 years ago. My friend was interviewing him, her job not paparazzi. and she invited me along. She and I were en route to dinner and she got a last-minute call to go to an event and do a short interview with him. He kept looking at my bobs during said interview, not on camera. But he looked at my face when we were introduced. So, you know. Thumbs up. I guess. Not me. My wife. She met Mohammad Atta, one of the 9/11 terrorists. He was scoping out the restaurant she was a hostess at. He talked down to her and never made eye contact. Got a table and required a male server. She didn't realize it was him until his picture came out after the 9/11 attacks. I had a bro moment with Johnny Depp in an airport. He was picking someone up from the airport when I noticed him. I looked at him when he noticed me looking at him. He was going to great lengths to hide his identity. I smiled and did the cool guy head nod and he gave me a nod back. I was like 12 at the time, so it was really cool to have a celebrity notice me, knowing it could have resulted in people swarming him and his lady friend lol. Jackie Chan. Around 2008. I was walking through an airport in China with my mom. Suddenly my mom tells me to look to my right. And there he is walking with a couple guys. One of his guys took a picture for me and Jackie, and he even signed my backpack, which I still have to this day. Unfortunately, I was never sent the picture, as 8-year-old me didn't think that far ahead. I still remember to this day how kind and sweet he was to me. A young fan. Even though he was probably in a rush to get out of there. Never met her because she was heavily protected by bodyguards. But I saw Lady Diana when she was on holidays in southern France. Her last trip to France didn't go so well. Ben Affleck. Asked him if he knew where a broom was. He said I don't know. Jennifer Garner. Super nice and gave us cinnamon bread she had baked. Jimmy Carter. Also one of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. I met him a few years ago. He was incredibly nice and humble. Joked about his involuntary retirement in 1980. And seemed extremely mentally and physically acute for a 92-year-old man. That deer from the beginning of Twilight. It started eating my shirt. Oh. Also Robin Williams. I spent 2 summers working for the Chicago Bears in the early 2010s. Jay Cutler is a douche-up. Usain Bolt. I was staying with the family in Jamaica and they had some connections to him. He walked through the front door during lunch one day. One of the chillest dude I've ever met. Mark Wahlberg did a meet and greet at the base where I'm stationed currently. He fist bumped me and said stay safe brother, so that was pretty cool. I worked with Fred Armisen on the set of Portlandia for 3rd season. He asked me a bunch of questions about my work cause he was getting ready to mock it on camera. It was an awkward day. Vin Diesel. He was super nice. His people said no pictures, but I asked him personally and he said sure with a big smile. And then he promptly fired his people. His people say no pictures because he probably can't say no. Making someone's day just by smiling in a photo with them must be very hard to say no to. Except if he said yes to everyone, he would be stuck wherever for hours. Hence his people save his time and his image by saying no. I was a teenager visiting relatives in Manhattan around Thanksgiving. I was living in Florida, so I was very tan and had bleach blonde hair. Needless to say, I stood out like a sore thumb. As my brother and I were walking around the corner. Who walks out of a building 10 feet in front of us? None other than Jackie Kennedy. She's about to get into a green Mercedes and as she's opening the driver's door, I called out to her asking for a ride to 82nd and Lexington. She just stares for a second, smiles, gets in the car and drives off. I like to think she may have told someone how to tan teenagers asked her for a ride. James Avery. He came into the hotel gift shop I worked at twice. First time he bought a pack of smokes. The second time a stamp. The stamp was self-adhesive. He licked it. I stumbled through explaining that he had to peel off the backing. He peeled it off. Then licked it again. Here I am. 1 foot away from James Avery with a stamp stuck to his tongue. I continued to fumble through explaining that he didn't need to lick it. He peeled it off his tongue and put it on his envelope. This was back in probably 2002. I met Christopher Walken in Manhattan. He had a large duffel bag full of cowbells. I met Can I was doing some work on his house. He was supposed to be gone for the day. But he ran into me and my boss in the backyard on our way out. He shook my hand and asked my name. And then he told one of his guys, a bodyguard, to carry my equipment for me. My boss immediately said, "That's okay. She's got it," and he replied, "No. I'll have my guys carry it." Best part was a year later I was telling a coworker the story and my boss said, "Wait, that was Can I?" I met Gabriel Iglesias at a New Year's show in 2011. I got all access to the show because my dad was a friend of Frankie's mom. He was the nicest guy and kept giving me stuff and autographing a lot of his DVDs for me to have. He was really hard to hug since I could get my arms all the way around him. I was 12 at the time. Jesse McCartney at a Waffle House in Myrtle Beach around 2 in the morning after he had a concert at the House of Blues. He was a real big dig to the waitstaff and his entourage were douchey. Definitely does not have a beautiful soul. Probably Harrison Ford. When I escorted him into the back of some movie auditorium so he could check out the people watching his latest movie. Nice guy. Asterisk. You guys didn't know that actors sneak into the back of theaters to watch you watching their movies. Did ya? I think maybe the people making acting in a movie don't often get a chance to see the whole movie. Or just sit in a theater and get engrossed in the flick like us plebs. 2016 Euros, Portugal vs Wales. I met Cristiano Ronaldo. It was time before the match start. They were getting warm up. I was standing near. He was shooting the ball in pole. I was behind the pole. He came there. I waved him. He smiled at me. Best moment of my life. When I was 4 years old I walked away from my mother in a Starbucks and got lost. I saw a woman who looked like my mom and walked up to her and pulled her shirt and said, "Mom, it was Gwyneth Paltrow," and my mom had to walk over and get me back. My mother remembers that she told us I was a very polite 4-year-old once I had figured out she wasn't my mother. I met Kirk Douglas at his home in Beverly Hills. I did computer repair and was sent to their home. I had no idea where I was until I sat down at his wife's laptop. They had a picture next to their PC of the whole family including Catherine Zeta-Jones, which made me realize where I was. His wife, Anne, was such a doll and an incredibly nice lady. She told me of their Labrador they call their $1 million dog because he ate a pricey statue in their backyard. Kirk was 97 years old at the time. He was singing and dancing around the house. He shook my hand and continued dancing. I was very impressed with how kind they were. Some people in LA really let fame get to them. But the Douglases never did. Mario Lemieux, my cousin, played hockey with his son and we all sat together at one of their hockey games. Dude is a beast. But super kind. When I was really young, I got to meet for a few seconds Hosni Mubarak, the ex-dictator of Egypt, and his wife Susan with my parents. My grandfather, Myron Rani, was in Easy Company in WW2 and is played by an actor in the miniseries. My family was invited to attend the Hollywood Bowl opening premiere. It was intense as a 9-year-old to say the least. Full-on gala experience. Met some of the surviving guys from Easy Company. Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, and a host of others. Right before they introduced the first episode, Tom Hanks gave my mother and her 4 sisters a shout out and had all of them stand up, to which they received a pretty decent round of applause. Very cool night. Have some awesome memorabilia from it. Chris Pratt and Anna Faris are such amazing and nice people. We snuck around backstage at their nephew's play, my old high school, to meet them. Also, Faris is so small. In 2013 I inadvertently told Eric Clapton to bugger off and stop chatting up one of my assistants. I didn't realize it was him until later that day when I saw a photo of him playing on stage with Prince at the very location our paths had crossed. Brian Johnson, singer for AC/DC. Met him at my uncle's Thanksgiving party in 2014. They're good friends. Brian wanted me to come over to his house and play his National steel guitar, but he's always really busy traveling and racing cars. Other notable people would be various members of the Allman Brothers Band, including Greg Allman and Bobby Whitlock, who was Eric Clapton's songwriting partner and keyboard player for Layla. Julia Roberts. I was at a play with my family when a woman wearing large sunglasses came up and said hi to my grandpa. Afterwards she looked to me and asked if the seat next to me was taken. Thinking nothing of it, I casually responded sure and went back to staring at my phone waiting for the performance to start. Someone then whispered to me, "Do you know who you're sitting next to?" I had no idea until I heard her laugh. Nicolas Cage. He stopped at my girlfriend's job, doctor's office, to ask for directions while I was there waiting for her shift to end. I saw Alan Rickman when he was on Broadway in 2012. He signed autographs after the show. I told him he was great, and he said thanks. I met Justin Long in Manhattan once. I told him that Sasquatch Gang was one of my favorite movies. His brother said Sasquatch Gang, and Justin said, "Oh yeah, you should check that one out sometime." TLDR, Justin Long's brother hadn't seen my favorite movie starring Justin Long. Once I saw Owen Wilson on my 12th birthday. He was shooting Masterminds near where I lived and had stopped for breakfast at the same cafe. My shy as 12-year-old self didn't want to talk to him in fear that I'd have annoyed him, but I kinda regret it in hindsight. Joaquin Phoenix when he was filming Ladder 49. I just miss John Travolta, but Joaquin was super nice and very friendly. His eyes are gorgeous in real life. Jared Leto was also nice. Keanu Reeves. Post-Speed. Pre-Matrix. I shot an interview with him and his band Dogster that was playing in town. Really nice guy. He was more interested in promoting his buddies in the band than he was talking about himself. I met Matt Dallas, Kyle XY, in a mall in Seattle doing autographs. I was the only guy in line of dozens of girls. He was so personable. Even got an autographed comic book. Neil Armstrong. At an air show. He was there to meet the last few remaining Tuskegee Airmen, who were sitting for autographs at the same air show. Met Paul Tibbets, who commanded the Enola Gay, the B-29 that dropped the first atomic bomb used in war. He was selling and autographing his book. Had audience with Dalai Lama back in 1993. Was a teen then. Thought that his presence filled the room and was way taller than what I expected. He laughed and asked, "How are the showers?" I stayed at a youth hostel that had cold AF showers. Haha, I said they were okay, haha.